Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to dissect our reality and start looking at the no so subtle signs that we are perhaps ignoring things we should be doing. Now, I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to structure this video, so I have a feeling it's going to be a little all over the place, so let's just buckle in for that one. Okay, so I'm going to go with an example I had this week to kind of shed a little light on different things I'll do when I see something that I feel like could be aligned and something I had seen in the dream world coming in for the last couple of years, but it hasn't anchored in yet, right? And I've done a couple of different things to anchor this sucker in. Hasn't happened. Now, I had an opportunity this week to maybe become more of a dream consultant in a certain space, right? And it was something my human really wanted to do because I just really think it would be fun, right? I'm like, oh, I really want to do that. There's a lot of things I have around that, maybe some notoriety around that, I'm not sure. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff I had going on with it. And I've seen this reality coming in, like I said before, for a couple of years, right? So this is not something I hadn't seen, because you do get to a point where you're not surprised by much anymore because you see everything coming so far ahead of time. You kind of live from the future. You go to sleep at night or even during the day, but a lot of times you have more forward, you can look farther up into different frequencies when you're asleep. You're always going to have a higher frequency when sleeping. That's why you see so much when you're sleeping. Beginning, that's why it's so pivotal. That is such a pivotal place in the beginning of your realities is your sleep state. Okay, so let's not dismiss that. I'm gonna tap something on at the end of that about our sleep state because it is important. But anyway, I'd seen it coming in for years, and I've done a couple things here and there that I felt like, okay, this is what I need to do to bring in this reality. Not linear things, not linear. One was kind of a linear thing, but it didn't work out the way I thought it was. But then I have to look at why I had to do certain things, right? So I might see, okay, you're supposed to send this person an email. That person might never read that email, but you need to send it because I have to work through my fear about that reality. I have to work through my fear about not being good enough perhaps to do that reality, right? So there's a reason I have to do this particular thing, but it's not about bringing that reality in that moment, right? It's about busting through anything in my way of that reality coming in the frequency I wanted to come in at, which is the one I saw in my dream state. That's the frequency I wanted to come in at. You know, I don't want it to come in a lower frequency because I'm trying to rush the reality. It goes back into a video I did on the art of restraint. We cannot rush something if it's not aligned yet. If it's aligned, it's here. If it's not here, it's not aligned. And if we can just learn to go with those, our lives will be a lot simpler. But what our human wants to do is make it happen, right? That's the human mantra. Oh, you got to make it happen. You know, you got to get in here and get all this stuff done. You know, you got to get in here and just move around and get all this stuff going. But that's how we fall into the same cycles. And we'll repeat the same cycles because we don't give realities time to come in. And normally they come in piece by piece. But because it's not a very clear linear piece, we sit there and say, oh, it's not happening. It's not coming in. But on a non-linear perspective, all these things are important to bring in the reality. We just don't see them as that because it's not a direct thing, like sending this direct message, calling this person, you know, talking, going to meet this person somewhere, doing whatever it is your human mind would say you need to do to bring in that reality. Now, we're going to do the opposite of that. Now, I did have to do a caveat of that. Sometimes you might have to do that. Like, I remember someone saying they wanted to get their book out to more people, right? So then they went into a place and asked, hey, can I do a book signing here on my book I just published? And the people were like, sure, that's great. Now that would be a very direct way to get that anchor in that reality. Now this is a reality that person could have seen years ago, right? In their dream state, them signing books. Probably way before they wrote the book. And I'm pretty sure it was way before they wrote the book, but they could see they were going to be doing book signings, right? Now there's a lot of things that led up to that final going in there and asking to do that. One, they had to write the book. Two, they had to get to the place where that bookstore was. It had to be all lined up where in that moment that bookstore would be looking exactly for something like that, okay? Now for me, so that's one example of something very direct. Now, like for me, when I'm looking at taking maybe trying to create an opportunity, going directly for that opportunity. Now, I can go directly for that opportunity, but I'm not doing it because it's time to bring that reality in, right? I'm busting through the fear of that reality. I might have to send out that email 3 years ago. Actually, I sent out this email. I think it was an Instagram message I sent. I don't think it was an email. To bust through my fear of doing that reality, right? I had a lot of fear or judgment around doing this reality. So I have to bust through that. At the time, I thought, oh, I'm trying to directly set up this reality. I am, but not in that linear way. I have to bust through the fear of that reality first. So I'm going to do that. That was 2 or 3 years ago. And it's come around a couple of times where it seems like this would be a pretty good fit. But every time I would go inside and ask, okay, is it time yet? I get a no. I have not gotten a clear sign that this is a reality that is aligned to now occur. So because I don't like that answer, I'm now going to go and I'm going to do something else. Because I don't like that answer, I'm going to now say, okay, I'm going to do one of my external markers on this because I don't like the answer I just got. And I'll say that every time on these videos. We'll always say we didn't get an answer. 2 things have happened there. We, A, didn't set long enough to get the answer, or B, we don't like the one we got. So in this case, I'm on the B territory. I don't like the answer I got because I really want to do this. So I'm going to ask for an external marker. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay, if I get a text by 9, that's a go. I could do what would be a very linear way for me to get this reality going. 3 years, almost 3 years later. Well, I didn't get the text because the answer was a no. And then I have to look at that. Why is it a no? Why can't I have this one? And the minute I said to myself, why can't I have this one? I knew my answer already. My agenda is not pure. I want something out of the reality. I don't have a clear reason to be there. That is in the purest state. I still have stuff to work through there. And if I still have stuff to work through there, the people that I'm going to have this reality with might not be in the place either to really us to all come together in the frequency we want to come together in, which is the dream I've seen, right? Of how this could be a very mutually beneficial, beautiful reality. But if everyone rushes in, it's not that. It's just going to be the same loop of the same stuff because we don't allow the reality to come in, and it piecemeals. That reality started coming in 3 years ago, but because it's not here and it's not a very linear shot to that reality, people are going to look at that and go, oh, it's not here yet. You need to do more. You need to make it happen. But it's not aligned yet. Now, 3 years ago, it was like, yes, you have to do that. But it wasn't for the reason I thought. It was more to bust through fear, right? That seems like a very non-linear reason to do something. Now, 3 years later, I could do that again, what I did 3 years ago, which was a yes, and now it's a no. And there's a 3-year gap here. But sometimes we don't have a 3-year gap. You might have something that's a yes 2 weeks from 2 weeks ago, and now if the situation appears again, now it's a no. And we have to be open to that. I could have the same situation pop back up next week, and it could be a go. But right now, it wasn't a go. It goes into a lot of different things, a billion different reasons why. The question is, how many can you see? Why is this a no? The minute I don't like the answer I get shit around the answer. And that tells me I got to work through something. Because technically, I should have no feeling around that answer. It's a yay, it's a nay. It's not time yet? Okay, I'll go do something else. I'll go do a reality where it is the right time yet. I'm not going to sit here and try to force it when it's not the right time because it's not going to be the frequency that I'm going to enjoy. It's going to be more of the same thing. Today I was watching the third season of The Outer Banks, which I have, I do watch and enjoy. But it was funny because midway through this, it was the same story. These people keep doing the same shit over and over and over again. The same girl keeps pulling it over on the guy. He keeps falling for it every time. You have the parents that keep doing, everyone's doing the exact same thing. It's just we could have revamped the whole thing up. And toward the end of the season, I was like, oh my God, they just keep going through the same thing all over again. And they keep falling for it all over again. It kind of reminded me of those old school soap operas. It's everything, it's kind of, everyone's in a loop. The old trope was you could only tune in on Fridays and Mondays and you knew what was going on because the rest of the week everyone's just spinning their wheels. But that's what we do in our human realities. We do the same thing they're doing on that show, but because the show, we're watching it, and we're watching it also in a condensed period of time where we keep saying, oh my God, it's the same shit over and over and over again. But when we're in the realities, we don't see we're doing that. And it's like, how come it's the same shit over and over again until you get away from the reality? And there's a reason for that. You get away from the reality, then you can give the reality time to reset. You get in that space where the reality has time to upgrade. Things have time to shift. Things have time to change. You can get your body in a different frequency. You can clear everything that held you to that old reality. You can go back into the reality eventually when you have no emotion around it anymore with the same people and have a totally different reality. Because you're in a different frequency, which means they're going to bring a different frequency. And if they can't, they won't be in the reality. There'll be somebody else that comes in that can hold that frequency with you. So we wonder why. Why do we keep repeating the same thing? If I had tried to bust through this reality I saw coming up this week, and this has come up quite a few times. It's not the first time this reality has appeared. It's kind of been loosely around for maybe a couple years now. Even if I want to go back 3 years from now, but more directly for a couple years. It's just not the right time. It's a no. Even though my human doesn't want it to be. So I have to give the reality time to come in the way it wants to come in. And it might, I will be honest, it might never be aligned to come in. It might be a reality I saw, but if everyone can't line it up, it's not going to come in. Everything we see in our dream world isn't going to come in. We had that talk on another video at one point. It might not ever come in because my agenda still might not be pure around it. And I won't start any more realities rushing into them because I'm afraid I'm going to lose out on it. That's a big one. If you have the, oh my God, I'm going to lose out on it, that's a human program you're running. That you're going to make it happen, right? Now, that doesn't mean we don't sit around and do nothing. No one will say I sit around and do nothing. I do a lot of stuff. Do I do the most linear, direct stuff someone would expect me to do? No, I don't. And it makes no sense as someone in a human consciousness the way I choose to do my work. But I'm not here to appease their human consciousness. People don't tune into any of my channels to listen to someone in a human consciousness talk about human stuff. They tune in to transcend that. That's why they're there. They're not coming in for the other reasons. Even if they don't know that at the time. So it's very important we really look at why we want something. Are we recreating the old things? Even if it looks different. We've been through that. It might not be a twin of the reality. It might be a sister of the reality, but it's very fucking similar. Then when I start peeling it back, this looks really similar. Energetically, it's really similar. Because energetically, we're similar. It's not them, it's us. It's very true. It's not them, it's us. We have to check ourselves. What am I doing in this reality? Why do I want it so bad? What story do I have around it? And if I don't have the purest intention, it's got to be a no. Now, I didn't like that, so I go for an external marker. Now, I have done that before, and I've done it anyway. Confess. I've done it anyway. And guess what? Shit did not work out the way I thought it was going to work out. Actually, it worked out probably the way it would have worked out if I had done nothing. The exact same thing happened. Because it wasn't aligned. It wasn't going to come in. I'm just going to put myself through, I think I put myself a couple of weeks of misery. Because I asked for a marker. I asked for an answer and I got a no. I asked for a marker. I didn't get it and I did it anyway. Different situation, but it didn't matter. The point is I didn't listen. So yeah, am I going to clear programming by going through it? Sure, but I'm going to spend 2 weeks muscling through something that I could have just said, okay, it's not aligned. Clear it. Well, let me see what I got around it and let me work on what I have around it. Maybe I could have cleared what I had around it in a couple hours. But instead, I'm going to trudge to the reality because I don't like the answer I got. Because I want that reality. I get so many stories around why I got to have the fucking reality. And that reality, that's another one that still hasn't come in yet. And I don't know if that one ever will be aligned either. But there does come a time when we start looking at them as it's just not aligned. It's not going to be what I think it's going to be. And I had dabbled in that reality, the other reality, a couple times over. And it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It always ended in the same place because I wasn't giving it enough time to reset. Even when I've given it years to reset, when I see the same thing start to unravel again, it's almost like my universe dangles the carrot and says, hey, are you really done with this? Let's just bring it in again. And I fell for it again. So when it came to this reality, which I don't have as much of an emotional attachment to, the other has to do with a particular person. So it was a little more intertwined for me to work through. Going through the twin karma, going through the twin stuff and trying to kind of, pull out of those karmic timelines and those matrices in themselves, the whole twin matrix, pulling out of all that. I don't have that attachment to this one, right? I don't like the answer, and I want to check that answer to make sure I'm getting the right answer, even though I know, at this point, I know when I hear it. I just didn't like it. Because we will sometimes go down, and I've gone through a lot of roles that I knew weren't aligned. I kept going down them. Now, one, we're going to be clearing programming going down them. And someone else could look at that and go, that's not aligned, but because we have so much emotion around it, we'll keep going down it. So it might be hard for you to do this kind of thing, do these kind of secondary tests when you get a no on something you really have an attachment to. Try it on something you don't have as much of attachment to. Look at it like that. They're kind of the test realities. Look at it. Okay, am I good? This time I was like, okay, it's a no. I don't like it, but I'm going to keep going, because if I don't, and I get dragged into something, and it could also be, there could be a different opportunity coming, and if I'm anchored into this one, I can't bring in the other one. And maybe there's something I can't see yet. Now, normally I can see kind of far ahead. I have a feeling this one will eventually come in. It's just not in the right space yet. And there is divine timing. Everyone's like, oh, divine timing. I did a whole video on divine timing. It's like divine timing has a cadence to it. If we just let it unravel, it makes sense. But we want to force it. Our human doesn't want anything to unravel on its own. We want to tear it apart. We get that from, a very young age when we open up Christmas presents. We want to tear it apart. We want to see what's in it. We want to get through with that reality. But because we're not letting anything come to a frequency where it can really be what we want it to be, it always ends up feeling short. It feels like it's not what we thought it was going to be. Because we're not letting them come in naturally, organically. We're forcing them. So look at where you're getting a no. Look at where your universe is clearly saying that's a no-go, and you're still going forward. And why are you doing that? Not you specifically, but you know what I'm saying. Why are we doing that? Because we all do it, and we all done it. Hell, I did it a couple months ago. Well, maybe I did it like 8 months ago. Sometimes we'll still get caught up in it because we're always going to be clearing our human programming. It just, after a while, it just pops up here and there. But there will be certain things where it has a little bit stronger audience for you. And you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be like, I really want to do that, but I know it's a no. And I got to work through it. So now I'm going to spend some time working through why I didn't like this answer being a no. And open myself up to it coming in a different way. Or not coming in at all. Because sometimes we have to be okay with it not coming in at all. Because a lot of times when you see a lot in your dream space, we can't get attached to any of the realities. And a lesson I learned very early on, because I got attached to a lot of the realities I saw, and then when they started coming in, I started messing with the frequency of them in a sense, right, to try to pull them in quicker. Even though I thought I was doing okay, and someone else would have thought I wasn't doing anything. For me, I was really manipulating that energy quite a bit. And it didn't turn out the way my human wanted it to. Did it turn out in a beautiful way from a soul perspective? Yes, but it didn't turn out how my human wanted it. So we have to really look at it, pull it apart, dissect it, look at what are you getting a no to, but what are you getting a strong yes to? Like, yeah, go do this. It might have nothing to do with it's no linear correlation. That's the word I'm looking for. It's no correlation to what you might want, but it's what you feel like you're supposed to do. Because there is a correlation of that. That's all a piece of a reality. But because it's not a linear piece, our human doesn't see it as a piece. Look at what you're not identifying as a piece of the puzzle. Go back and look at all your other realities you've bought in and look at different ways you had to get there and how that was important at that time. But you didn't see it as a big piece of the puzzle yet because you couldn't see it. You'll be surprised when you look back in a different consciousness now, what you can see is how that reality came in and how it had nothing to do with how you thought it came in. That was just how your human correlated it. Now look at how your soul correlated it. And keep practicing the art of intuition.